Kelsie. Why did you say Utah? You live on the spelling. E-R-I-J-E-M-I-S-O.
You can't lose it or
And I'm
get
also the chair of the policy committee of the PSIU Coalition for Postpartum Support International, the Utah chapter. So thank you all for coming today. We just finished presenting a maternal mental health support appropriations request to the legislature, the Social Services Appropriations Committee. As the next step of 2.5 years of work that our committee has been doing to try to raise awareness around postpartum depression and anxiety in our state. One of the things that we've found is that there is not consistent care for moms and their families. It is the number one complication of childbirth and the second leading cause of death in the 12 months postpartum for women in our state is suicide. First leading cause being related to substance use, which also has mental health foundations. So it's a really important issue for a state that is so supportive of families and so encouraging of our families to grow. We want to make sure that moms have the support that they need and that they're having consistent screening and response when they do have maternal mental health issues. So we're really excited about the request. Representative Daly Provo should be joining us any minute to talk about that. She is our sponsor. And I am going to hand it over to one of our amazing moms who has survived some of these issues and is supporting us in the work. So I will turn it over to Kelsie.
Look at, shh, there's Mama.
Yeah,
Let's hear Mama talk.
Hear Mama say it. I'm Kelsie Oliver. I am a mom, and I spell my name Kelsioliver. And I'm just gonna do a little recap of my story that I presented doing the appropriation. So when my baby was 3 days old, I had no complications prior to this, and all of a sudden it was like a switch had flipped, and I was panicking. My mind was racing at all times, and I was struggling with what's called intrusive thoughts. So with myself harming my baby and myself at the expense as well. And so I just became desperate. And so I became desperate, and the more I thought to make all these go away, the more they were coming and the stronger everything became. So I hid for about over a month because I was afraid that someone would deem me as an unfit mother and she would be taken away from me. Later down the road, I then decided that I didn't want to do this anymore and that my family did not deserve this, so I was going to take my own life. And so my husband took me to the emergency room. They did an evaluation and I was sent home with some medication. The next day, I was able to meet with a maternal mental health therapist, and she finally shed some light on what was happening, and I had postpartum anxiety OCD. And she did not feel I was safe to go home, so I was then sent to a psych ward. It was a lockdown facility, and I was unable to see my child every day. I saw her a couple hours every day, and then I didn't know when I was going to get out. So after 5 days, I was released, and I was put into an intensive outpatient facility. And I was there 3 days a week, 3 hours a day for 12 weeks. And this was crucial for my recovery because I was able to learn what to do. And with the appropriation going through, I know for a fact if I would have been screened, if I would have been sent to a referral service, this would have still happened. I would have still suffered from this illness, but it would not have gotten so severe, and I would have been able to stay home with my baby. And I love to say that mothers will always fight, and we deserve to not face this alone or in silence. And that this will help so many moms in Utah be able to stay home with their family and be the moms that they really want to be.
Over many years is that they often don't know what's going on with them because these symptoms tend to present differently than they're expecting. We have an idea in our head and our culture of what postpartum depression is, and typically women are actually taking really good care of their children They are loving their babies, even if they feel disconnected and overwhelmed and anxious. They feel agitated, they feel angry, they feel irritable, they can't sleep, and they're afraid to ask for help because they're ashamed, and there's so much stigma. So everything we're all doing here today is a huge step in the direction of lowering stigma and increasing the odds that women will talk to each other, talk to their sister, talk to their friend, talk to their care provider, let them know what's really going on. And if this appropriations request is approved, one of our major objectives is to better improve the education of providers so that when moms are brave enough to reach out for help, they'll be talking to someone that gets it, that understands what they're looking at and knows how to treat it appropriately. The good news, before I recap, is that although women are at the highest risk of their entire lifetime to come down with a mental illness, it's not exactly like coming down with a cold, but it is treatable. They also respond to treatment better during this time in the lifespan than other times that they may have a mental illness. So there's so much hope, and our major message is we want women to know they are not alone, they are not to blame, and with help they will be well.
Thanks, Amy Rose. Representative.
Hi, I'm Representative Jen Daly Provo. I am really excited that this group brought this idea for a funding request to me because it's something that I was really honored to have the opportunity to submit. And I also want to thank all of the brave moms who came today to share their story. I think that's the biggest key to making sure that we finally make steps in combating this very serious issue, because as a mom, like you just said, we think that we're supposed to be blissfully happy all the time, and we really need to combat statewide, nationwide, worldwide, that feeling anxiety or depression is not a failure of any kind, and really making some strides in that outreach, both to providers and to patients and women at risk, is really, really important. And I think that these tools, these innovative ways of outreach and treatment are really going to change the entire landscape in dealing with maternal mental health in our state, and hopefully, something scalable nationwide. So I'm really hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to make a real difference. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the team that will get this done. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
How much is the appropriation you're seeking?
So the request is $250,000 one time and then $250,000 ongoing for the next couple of years. And we're in discussions with leadership and social services appropriations to figure out how much we can spend in the rest of the fiscal year so that we're using resources judiciously.
Did you say 200 ongoing?
250 ongoing.
So 251 and then 250 ongoing.
Correct.
And how do you envision that money being put to use to help in these situations with her?
So the way I envision it is making sure that our amazing team has all the resources that they need to create outreach tools and treatment tools, in large part to leverage what our state is already investing in, a robust telehealth network, particularly because rural areas of the state have a severe, the whole state has a severe shortage in health providers, particularly mental care providers, but it's particularly acute in rural areas of the state, which is why we're excited about the innovative ways to create these tools that are efficient and effective and can reach around the state.
One of the things that we've also found is that the providers will tell us, even if they do screen a mom, if that screen comes back positive for any concern, they don't know what to do. That an entire clinic will kind of come to a halt as they make 100 phone calls trying to figure out where to provide services and where this woman can go. And so one of the things we're really hoping to do is be able to support the Department of Health in creating that really robust referral network, so that it's not depending on volunteers and people in their spare time updating a website, but that there's actual institutionalized information that providers and families can access, so that it's not just luck of the draw with getting that info.
And you submitted that today?
We testified in it today. We had a lot of people testify. The formal request was made in committee today. All request submissions were made weeks ago.
And how was it received in committee, and where do you see it going from here?
I've gotten very positive feedback. I actually had a meeting with Representative Ray, who's vice chair of the committee, on the floor today. He's got some thoughts on ways to structure the funding so that we can get going as quickly as possible. I'm optimistic.
Any other questions for Representative Daly Pillow before she has to go vote on important things?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Declaration. Postpartum depression, maternal anxiety during pregnancy all have long-term, even lifelong effects on their children. And although this is a terrible occurrence to the mother and to the ravages on her emotions, it also affects that infant. And as a pediatrician, I see that what we really need is we need to help the mother to be able to nurture a child. When you think about a mother who's anxious or depressed, they're distracted, they can't coo when that baby coos, they can't coo back, they can't nurture and snuggle with that baby, and that baby needs that, totally needs that for their stability, their emotional responsiveness, and even their lifelong education and their lifelong health. So I want you to see that this is also a pediatric disease, pediatrics problem. Anyways, I'd like to read some parts the governor proclaimed this month, February of 2019, as the Utah Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'd like to just read some parts of that just to kind of put that into perspective. Whereas maternal depression and anxiety is a serious public health issue in Utah, whereas maternal depression and anxiety encompass a range of symptoms and mental health disorders, including depression, anxiety, social withdrawal, and in extreme cases, psychosis. Whereas at least 1 in 7 of our Utah mothers experience maternal depression and anxiety. Whereas maternal depression and anxiety is the leading complication of childbirth, with incidence rates higher than preterm births, low birth weight babies, and gestational diabetes. Whereas maternal depression and anxiety affect a woman's ability to care for herself and engage in healthy parenting behaviors. Whereas when a mother experiences maternal depression and anxiety, it affects family well-being and stability. Whereas maternal depression and anxiety affect parent-child bonding, increases family conflict, lowers rates of breastfeeding, and can lead to less safe home environments for children. Whereas children of affected mothers are at increased risk for serious health, development, behavioral conditions that can affect the child's overall development and growth. Whereas despite the prevalence and the risk, there is lack of awareness and acceptance among the public and among providers, and many mothers feel reluctant to report symptoms or concerns. Whereas just when a mother expects to be maximally happy with the birth of her child, maternal depression and anxiety can rob her of her happiness and isolate her in shame and stigma. And whereas there are evidence-based, cost-effective screening, detection, and treatment options to lessen the suffering of mothers, but which are not yet available to all mothers in Utah. Now, therefore, I, Gary R. Herbert, Governor of the great state of Utah, do hereby declare February 2019 as Utah Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessie Mandel, Jessie-Mandle. And I'm with Voices for Utah Children, and I'll just quickly close and just say thank you so much to everyone that came out today. This is an effort that has been many years in the making. We have been working together as a group of providers and advocates and parents for a long time to try and tackle this issue, because it really is multifaceted. And for too long, what we've been doing is blaming moms, blaming families, saying just solve this at the mom level, at the family level. And this is a systems level, this is a policy level problem that we can address and we can change. And so it's really exciting to see everybody come together today and to really start to make some momentum and traction with this appropriations request. And it's also just, it's really uplifting to see how many people are paying attention to this issue and coming out. But I also want to just take a minute to recognize that there are so many moms and so many families that we still haven't reached. There's moms in rural areas, there's moms in communities that feel afraid to come forward and feel like they can't yet tell other people what they're suffering and what they're going through. And so this is really what that appropriations request is about. It's making sure that all moms across Utah feel like they can get the care that they need, to feel like they can get the support that they need to take care of themselves and take care of their families, because we need healthy moms, healthy caregivers to care for families in our state. So thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out. And we will be moving forward with this appropriations request, and we'll be moving forward with policy changes down the line to continue to strengthen and improve our system of care for families in Utah.
Any other
Kelsie, thanks for sharing your story. A quick question for you. How important was a support system as far as family members in the process you went through, and what advice would you have for other family members who are maybe noticing maternal mental health issues within a loved one? What should they do?
So I didn't actually catch on that something was wrong, really until my husband started to say something. But I still didn't, I kept it a secret for so long because, like I said, I was afraid she was gonna be taken away from me. And so when I finally came out to my family and I told my grandparents and my parents and my sisters of what I was suffering from after I had gone to the emergency room, they really stepped up and they really helped. And I cannot say how important it is for your family to be behind you and to pick up the pieces, because we already feel so much shame and we feel so much guilt for having this, even though it's not under our control. But they can pick up the pieces and they can just do the small little things. Just my husband was picking up the house and just kind of taking the load off of when you're, I was, with me being like an OCD side of things, I was so compulsive of everything that my baby was not being as cared for as I wanted her to, but that wasn't my fault. And so the family and the dynamics, and for them to see you struggling, is when they really need to pick up and have some empathy for you and know that you're struggling, but you also have to be very straightforward and tell them the signs and symptoms that you're struggling with, so that everyone can be on the same page and the expectations are the same.
And just to reiterate, I mean, we don't need to make moms and families suffer alone, right? We can, this is what we need to do. We need to come together. We need to strengthen our provider system, our network of referral and support, because otherwise it's up to moms, it's up to families to deal with this alone. And this is a systemic problem that we can address.
So right now, who should families turn to in the event that they notice this?
They should speak to their care provider first, and they should look at Postpartum Support International's website, which is postpartum.net. And regardless of where they are, in Utah, somewhere else in the world, another state, they can get connected to free peer support, and we'll get a phone call back within 24 hours. They can get text support, and they can get information for families, partners, and loved ones to begin getting the help that they need right away.
Other questions? I just want to mention there's a number of women here this morning who testified in the appropriations committee who are open to one-on-one interviews and any of us as well. So you're welcome to stick around. And thank you all again for coming. And we'll keep you posted on whether they fund us and for how much. But we're hoping for good news.